This show is sponsored by BetterHelp Online Therapy. Without a healthy mind, being happy is hard. Visit betterhelp.com/kindafunny and see if online therapy is for you.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Kinda Funny Xcast, your home for all things Xbox here at Kinda Funny. Of course, I'm one of your hosts, Snowbike Mike, and today I am joined by the Parris Lilly. Parris, what's going on? How are you today?
I'm doing fantastic. Hey, Greg, Death's Door. See, I said it twice.
No, I can't send him another $5. It's one payment of $5. That's all we're doing.
Added to the tally, of course, that voice and that body, that smiling face taking over for Gary Whitta this week is our producer on the ones and twos, Mr. Barrett Courtney. What's going on, Barrett? Welcome to the show again.
Thank you so much for having me on the show officially. You know, I know I chime in probably a little too much on the ones and twos, but it's just because I love talking video games with y'all. Mike, Parris, it finally happened. I had tried to hold off for so long. Being the producer of an Xbox show, you know, it felt blasphemy to not have an Xbox. I know a lot of people out there felt that way. Here we go. The Xbox Series S, all in its full glory, here in my house. Already did the initial setup. I told Parris right before we started recording, the first thing I did with it was download Skate 3. Because whenever Parris talks about Game Pass and would ever bring up his kids playing Skate 3, I'm like, oh, man. I want to go back to those days, you know what I'm saying, Mike? Especially with the tease of Skate 4 this week, I was like, man, I really need some Skate 3 in my life. So got some things downloaded there. Downloaded Metal Gear Solid 2 and 3, Mikey, for when we hit those in our Metal Gear Solid series playthrough. And I'm just excited to mess around with it and be back in the Xbox ecosystem. The last time I owned an Xbox was, I want to say 2015 was when I sold my 360. And the only reason I kept it on for that long was because at the time that was like the only place I could really play the last gen Batman Arkham games. And, you know, I love that series. It's my favorite series, video game series of all time. And I love playing it all the time. And I was like, all right, I got to let these games go. They're in the past. I'm going to sell this console. And then, of course, the following year, they remastered them. So life told me, no, you're going to play these games forever and at least once a year. So, yeah, I'm excited to be back into the ecosystem and check everything out. Even just the couple minutes that I spend going into like the backwards compatibility stuff, I was like, oh man, this is so cool. I'm so excited to check out a bunch of games. And like, it was hard to like stop myself to get ready for this show because I was just like, I just want to download everything right now. It's ridiculous.
That is awesome.
368 days, if my calculations are correct, that it took you to finally jump in and get the console. That is 1 year and 3 days after our official 1 year anniversary of the podcast. Barrett producing all of it. And that's how long it finally took the break. So, Barrett, I'm so happy that you got your hands on the console. You get to play around with it. And it's funny, you know, you bring up Skate 3, and the best is me and Parris always talk about skate with his kids, me playing skate with my friends. And I love that you're jumping into it. But for me, it's like now you're like a kid at Christmas, right? You get to turn on the console. You get to run through the UI once again, right? You get familiarized with it. You get to jump into that catalog, especially now because you've been playing most of your Xbox games via the Game Pass PC app. So now it's going to be really exciting. You're in the full ecosystem now with the cloud gaming, the PC, and the console at home. So this is really exciting, Barrett, and I'm so happy for you.
I'm so excited to mess around with it. And like, yeah, it's been even just like scratching a little bit of that itch of like having Game Pass Ultimate to be able to download stuff on PC. It was just like one of those things like, man, but I know that Game Pass console library is so much cooler, and it like has a lot of things that speak to me. So, yeah, I'm excited, y'all.
The cool thing that you're going to discover is, because I do this a lot, I primarily play on PC. Mm-hmm. So, you know, if I engage with an Xbox game, it, you know, it's through the Xbox app. But then if I want to go out in the family room or something, or where the kids play, I can just hop on there, save just comes right over. I keep on going.
So that was the question I had, because I was like, I'm replaying
Yeah.
Dishonored 2, I'm replaying Wolfenstein 2 and stuff like that, and that was like the question of like, all right, I've been playing them on PC. If I just feel like booting up the Xbox and giving my PC a break, like, can I just do that? And
Yes,
that's
you can.
even more exciting. So holy crap, Parris, you're blowing my mind.
Now, not everything does. Like, as an example, because I think I've talked about it on here, like Fallout 76 doesn't work that way. But, you know, obviously that's a legacy game, so they never patched it. Minecraft Dungeons, they actually just recently fixed. So you can do that now with Minecraft Dungeons, where you can kind of port it back and forth. But a game like Gears 5, as an example, it's seamless. Yeah, you can start on the console, stop, jump on the PC, continue where you left off. Sea of Thieves is another one as an example. And obviously all the new games that they're coming out with now support it as well. So yeah, it's a really, you know, just quality of life feature. It's really cool.
And that's the other, you bring up like Gears and like kind of the, just thinking about like the mainstays for Xbox. Like I started a Halo replay earlier this year, and I haven't gone back. But the exciting thing now is I have access to Halo 5, right? That was the one that wasn't on PC.
Yep.
So
Yep,
if I want to get fully caught up for Halo Infinite, now I can, which is really exciting. But the one thing is, like, going back to Halo 1, it's like, oh man, like, yeah, it is a little slow to get into like back into the lore and stuff like that. So like, I'm just wondering, do I just skip to like the highlights for me, right? Like Halo 3 and then like Halo Reach. Remember Reach? Oh my god, I love Reach. And then maybe finally finish 4. Like I'd started 4 and never like made it past like the first couple hours. So maybe I just go from like 3 to 4 and try out 5. I know 5 was a little bit of a pain for you to go back to, Parris, but I still want to check it out at least, you know?
It's worth checking out. I think with Infinite coming up, it'll be interesting. Like the fact that you didn't finish 4, I definitely say finish 4, because I have a feeling that Master Chief Cortana relationship in 4 is going to heavily, you know, relate to the stuff that we're going to see with them in Infinite. It'll be interesting to see what they bring over from 5 into Infinite as far as the story goes. So yeah, if you got the time, definitely check them out.
Ooh, Barrett, you're going to have so much fun. That's awesome to hear. Of course, Parris, a quick check-in with you. How are you doing? What games have you been playing before we jump into a radical show here in a moment?
I have been playing Death's Door. That's 3. Now I've said it 3 times. No, I've been playing Death's Door. The game's phenomenal. It's one of those things where I always just have a little inside joke that, you know, my spidey sense goes off about certain games, if it's going to be really good, if it's going to be really bad. I feel like, you know, I'm like friggin' 8-0 right now when it comes to that, because the second I saw Death's Door, I go, this is going to be good. I knew it was going to be good. I'm so glad that we were able to have Acid Nerve on here to talk about the game. And then now that the world has had a chance to actually play it, to just see all the glowing reviews, to see everyone on social media just talking about it. My dog, again, agrees with all of this. Yeah, it's phenomenal. It's great. It's just a great game, and highly recommend anyone out there that has not checked it out yet. I think it's $20 right now to pick it up. It is not on Game Pass, which, hey, it's part of the business. It's not. That's fine. Definitely worth your $20, though. I highly recommend people pick it up.
I'm so glad that you're enjoying it and you're feeling that. It has been really fun to see everybody now, Parris, reacting to it now that it's out in the wild. The reviews are out there, and to see it so positive after you and I talking with the team over there, just a 2-man team with some help from some others, but really, really cool from the previews to now where we are, and just, you know, watching that all evolve. That's great. And I'm glad you're enjoying it a lot. But you know what? Another fun one is we have an awesome interview coming up later on in the back half of the show. We have one of the raddest dudes in video games, the head honcho of Double Fine Productions, Tim Schafer, joining myself and Parris to talk all things Psychonauts and, of course, his lineage in the video game industry. So it's going to be a ton of fun. Don't miss out on that. But the front half of the show is going to be all about Psychonauts 2, because we were given access to a fun hands-on preview event ahead of its August release. So we're going to talk about that in just a couple of moments. So let's jump right into the show. Of course, this is the Kind of Funny Xcast. We post each and every Saturday at 6 a.m. West Coast, Best Coast time on youtube.com/kindoffunnygames, roosterteeth.com, and of course on podcast services around the globe. I'm going to pimp out something special here. youtube.com/kindoffunnyplays. Please go on over to that YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button, because that is where we put all of our VOD content from our Twitch live streams each and every weekday. after Kind of Funny Games Daily. And as you heard Barrett say, we have been playing through the Metal Gear Solid franchise. It's our first time, me and Barrett, ever playing Metal Gear Solid 1. It is an experience of its own to see these characters, to hear about the history, Kojima, all of that in between. It's been really, really fun. So come join us over at youtube.com/kindoffunnyplays to experience Metal Gear Solid for the first time. And of course, to catch up on all of the Twitch streams you might have missed if you want to go check it out. On top of that, we'd like to thank our monthly Patreon producers for the month of July. Thank you to Marcus Stanford, Tyler Ross, Julian the Gluten-Free Gamer, James Hastings, Casey Andrews, and Elliot. Of course, this week of the Kind of Funny Xcast is sponsored by ExpressVPN, Upstart, and Credit Karma, but we'll talk all about that later. Let's jump right into the fun of Psychonauts. So before we do our Psychonauts 2 hands-on preview, of course, Barrett spoke a couple weeks ago about him playing through Psychonauts 1 thanks to backwards compatibility, and he got me excited about it, Parris, right? We knew that we were a month away. You've played it before, 15 years. And so I said, I got to play it, right? I got to jump in here and see what's up. So I actually just finished my Psychonauts 1 playthrough right before we went hands-on with Psychonauts 2. So a lot of Psychonauts last week for me, to be honest with you. And I had a ton of fun. So I thought we'd start really quick with just 5 minutes about Psychonauts 1, because maybe a lot of our audience hasn't played that. Maybe they have played it. Maybe they haven't seen it or heard about it for 15 years, and it's finally back on their radar with this sequel. And so I thought we'd just get a quick run through of what everybody thought or what you remember of Psychonauts 1, as I've just come hot off the heels of it. And I got to say, Barrett, after you broke it down a couple of weeks ago, I was into it, right? I think we're coming hot off the heels of Ratchet and Clank and It Takes Two, these fun third-person action platformer games that you can really enjoy. And when you said, hey, Mike, like, this is a fun, unique story, a cool little action platformer, I think you're going to like it, I took a chance. And Barrett, 15 years might show its age a little bit in the gameplay and the visuals, of course, but the story and the jokes and the humor and the fun, it's all still there. It is a heartwarming, fun story that really made me smile all the way through. It challenged me during some puzzles. I actually enjoyed the combat, and everything was really, really great. I will say the final 2 levels, of course, the Meat Circus, were very difficult for me. Those platformers got a little wild.
Yeah, that's where the platforming definitely showed its age a little bit. That last boss sequence took me a few tries to get through, especially with all the tightrope stuff and stuff like that. You could definitely see that, like, yeah, this is a 2005 PS2 era platformer right here, but it was still like a fun ride when you get back to that final boss and see where the story all like ends up.
Yeah, it was really cool to meet Raz and then, of course, go to the summer camp and experience what that was with all of the kids and Raz and the dynamic of what's going on and the Psychonauts with the teachers and the camp counselors. And I really enjoyed that. I think I loved it all the way through. And I think, Parris, you and I will talk about this with Barrett, of course, when we go into Psychonauts 2, but the theme, right, of mental health and battling these mental illnesses, the mental demons, and having empathy and help overcoming that for other people, because it's not in your mind, you're going into other people's mind, which is a really trippy idea. And it was one, Parris, that stuck with me through 1 and hot into our preview with number 2 of, like, it made me smile, it made me think, and it actually kind of made my heart warm of, like, wow, they took on these themes and they've made them, you know, very profound, very unique, but also really special of, like, it was a fun way to overcome those challenges and kind of talk about that, which is interesting to me.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing, just to give a tiny sneak peek into our discussion we had with Tim, that was the one thing that I brought up, was the fact that the way that Double Fine is able to address mental health, do it in a way that, yes, there's some funny moments to it, but it is respectful to what that means to just overall in life. I thought they balanced that very well, to where they're giving you some real life stuff that actually goes on with mental health, but they do it in a comical way, but it's not over the top to where it's just disrespectful to that entire process. So yeah, again, kudos to Double Fine and all, and obviously Tim will talk about that in the interview. But yeah, it is interesting, and I didn't complete the original Psychonauts when I started playing it again. I just went through, some of the early levels to kind of just refresh myself. So I haven't gone back to the Meat Circus. And the fact that you bring that up, it's like, I wonder how the hell did I beat that back then? But it is interesting thinking about how the theme of it, the writing and everything has, and maybe we ought to hold this to Psychonauts too, but it really carries on into the second one, playing that as well. So I'll save some of that till we'll talk about it.
It's a perfect fun blend because we're going to move into Psychonauts 2 right now. But I do, Barrett, I want to finish with you, but I want to give some love really quick to Xbox backwards compatibility and the power of that console. It is wild. You know, Barrett heard me during some of the live streams of like, I'm blown away by the visuals. And this game is 15 years old, and it has no right to be looking this good during gameplay. And when you cut to the cutscenes, you would see the age and you'd be like, oh, wow, okay, never mind. It looks really old. But like, it is very impressive to play these old games. Like we're playing Metal Gear Solid on PC, and I'm looking around like, does anybody else notice how good this looks? Why does this look so good? Like, was I just too young to recognize it, or did it look bad back then? And it's like, I'm very impressed with what you see with a 15-year-old game through backwards compatibility with this hardware.
Yeah, and I was especially spoiled because when I finally played through Psychonauts 1 for the first time, all the way through a few months ago. I played it, I think, on Steam. And like I was able to get like kind of like finagle some stuff in the back end and get it to like 1440p and have all like the in-game models like look a little fresh and of course nothing like where the second one is at. But I got to like get that full kind of like HD feel, even though like the assets are still a little bit old. And then it was definitely jarring, like going from that to the cutscenes, and you're like, oh yeah, like that's where games were at 15 years ago. So, but yeah, just like. I'm glad you finally went through it. I'm glad it like really hit for you, especially like it really hit for me. And something that I'm surprised, like for all the times people tried to sell me on that game, no one was like, dude, you really love Persona 5. Like check this game out. Cause there's some like similarities of like going into people's cognition essentially and seeing the way they view the world and in a lot of the times non-healthy ways. And being able to see like kind of being able to walk in other people's shoes and understand like where they're at, and I think you said it at one point, Parris, of like the way that they're able to meld kind of story and themes and like even gameplay aspects together, even in the original, is really, really impressive. Just like the fun little thing where like the collectibles in the game are like figments of the imagination, right? And like those like help you level up and like and get more powers and stuff like that and become more powerful and get more life. And like the mental vaults where people have locked away memories and the cobwebs and like sorting out like people's mental cobwebs and stuff like that. Like they're all like these fun like kind of visual representations for things that we talk about when we talk about mental health and stuff. And again, like you said, Parris, it's like it never feels disrespectful. It's like a fun way to like show these aspects, but it never feels like it's coming from a place of disrespect whenever it's trying to bring up topics and stuff like that. The one question I have for you, Mike, because I'm really interested of like you already brought up the meat circus and slight spoilers for a game that's 15 years old, but what level stood out to you the most is what I'm really wondering here.
Thanks for asking that, Barrett, because I know you and I talked about the Milkman conspiracy and how that stood out to you. And it's funny, I was on that mission when you brought that up, and I was like, oh man, it is kind of a trippy, weird mission with the Girl Scouts and this Milkman. I don't know what the heck is going on and all these different agents, right? But actually what really stood out to me was a couple missions later, actually out there during the final sequence, was the Luchador and the man being the bull and battling, his high school sweetheart being taken by kind of like the varsity cheerleader guy. And that was really fun. And I think what it was the standout of color. Right. I think everything really stayed the same throughout the game. And there's some really great set pieces, but all of a sudden you were in this incredible, like all blacked out, neon light colored. Raz's suit changed. You fought the different wrestlers on each of their different mats, which was really cool and unique. And I think that one to me, I was like, wow, look at this. This is totally different from everything we've played so far.
That's awesome. Yeah, that whole sequence when you're in the asylum is like you get to go into a lot of cool levels. There's one close to that one too, where you essentially go into a tabletop game, and you have to the level is essentially you battling through a tabletop match, which again, the worlds that they're able to create even back then was really impressive, and to see what we got to see with Psychonauts 2. and see like the ideas that have grown inside their brains for probably like the last like decade of just like these cool ideas that they're able to expand on even more. It's just like, holy crap, I can't wait to see what else they have up their sleeve with the the sequel.
Oh yeah.
Well, let's jump in and talk about the sequel. Of course, we were granted permission to go on hands-on with a really cool preview. Of course, a lot of outlets have different previews up, so listen to ours. Go check out other content creators and different outlets that you love. Listen to their opinions. Find the ones that you like, that you don't like. Gather the information you need, because guess what? Raz and the Psychonauts are back next month, releasing August 25th and available through Xbox Game Pass. So Xbox players, you can jump right into this fun world without having to pay a fee right off the bat. Of course, we were granted special permission access to this preview ahead of it all. There were 4 total missions. It felt like 6, but really it was 4 when you look at the big breakdown of it all. Anywhere could last you from 2 hours to 6 hours. So I want to just jump right in with you guys. Let's share our initial thoughts of what you thought. And Parris, I'm going to kick it to you first. What were just some of your initial thoughts of your experience with the preview?
I absolutely loved it because it felt like I was returning to something that, you know, that I've been a part of for so long. My wife walked in, sorry. But no, I absolutely loved it because it felt so familiar to just jump into Psychonauts 2. And I love that they gave you the recap at the start, you know, to kind of, for people that played it 15 years ago or never got to play it. So you got to, oh, okay, this is the world and this is kind of the previously. And, you know, it literally starts like right after the events of the original Psychonauts. You're thrown back in as Raz. And I mean, and I said this on Twitter the other day, but, you know, the writing, the level design, the music that they had in Psychonauts 2 and just the limited amount of playtime that we had, it was fantastic. I loved it. I mean, again, I'm trying so hard to like not spoil anything specific other than to say I loved it. If I had a critique, I mean, there's definitely some tweaking that they could kind of do in the quote unquote combat that's in the game. I felt the platforming elements were good, but it's the story that they're building and what it all means to be a Psychonaut in that world is what engaged me to want to keep going and want to keep playing. Because trust me, once I was done, I'm like, man, I want to finish the game. This is where I'm at with it. So if anything, it's going to be a long month until we get to play it again. But my initial thoughts is I loved it. Double Fine, I feel like they're absolutely knocking this out of the park. So yeah, it's great.
Barrett, what were some of your thoughts?
I'll agree with Parris. I loved it, and I wanted to finish it. I wanted to see it all the way through, and it was hard to play so much of the game and be like, man, like Phil Spencer was on Gamescast last week, or maybe 2 weeks ago. Time is a flat circle. And
well, he wasn't here. We know that.
Yeah,
he wasn't on Xcast. Yeah, that's for sure. And he was saying like on that where he was he got to play a preview build of Psychonauts 2, and I wonder if it was the same thing that we got to check out. And he said like early on that he had kind of put the controller down. He was like, all right, like I want to stop here because I want to play the full game when the full game's ready. And like when he was talking about that, I was like, man, I feel that so hard because it was one of those things like even going through the first mission and finishing there, I was like, all right, I feel like I've seen and played enough. I'm sold. Like I was already sold on the sequel. I was even sold on the sequel before I had played the first one all the way through, just because every time it showed up in an E3 and with a new trailer, I was like, man, I'm so into this idea and so into this world and this art style and these characters. And I did make myself play the entire thing because I wanted to capture as much footage as we could for the preview. I just playing it on PC, like to get like the kind of little snags out of the way. Like it was a little like performance wise, a little framey at times. Granted, this is a preview build. They're still a little bit out from fully releasing the game. So I had that in the back of my mind of like, they're still probably tweaking some things here and there. Performance wise, there was a second Raz in the middle of a boss fight that I played. And so that was a little, it was fun to have that like kind of hanging out in the middle of my screen. But besides that, like it's just interesting that you said you would like to see them tweak the gameplay a little more. I think like coming off hot from the first one, the thing that I was really impressed by was like how much it felt true to the original, but just like the little modern tweaks to not make it feel like you're still playing a PS2 era game. The game is really impressive of bringing you back to that era of 3D platformers from the mid 2000s, but not particularly feeling as weird and janky as sometimes Psychonauts 1 feels like today. And so that was something that really stood out to me with both the combat and the platforming. There's like little tweaks here and there with the platforming, especially where I was like, oh man, like there were times in Psychonauts 1 playing it this year where I was like using like the levitation ball and stuff, where I was like completely breaking some things that I probably shouldn't have been breaking in design. And just like the little tweaks here and there to, again, make it feel like that era, but not feel too old, but keep it feeling fresh and a little more refined to make it feel like a game that's actually coming out in 2020. I was really 2021. I was really impressed with. It didn't feel like I'd mentioned this on PS I Love You XOXO earlier this week. It didn't feel like playing SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated, right? Where that was literally just, it was a visual upgrade for sure, but that game controlled exactly how it did back in the mid 2000s, and even like Destroy All Humans when that got remade and stuff, like that feels exactly how it played back in the mid 2000s. So yeah, I'm absolutely in love with it. I really love the art style. I know it's everybody has different tastes. I've seen some comments on YouTube of like, oh man, I'm really not into this, blah 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 blah. I think the game's really pretty, especially playing it on PC. I was like really impressed of just like how beautiful the art style is, and again, similar to the gameplay, keeping homage to like what the original art style was, especially with like the limitations you had back then, but still like modernizing it, like even like the differences with like how Raz looks, like it doesn't feel too far from the original, but just tweaked a little bit enough to have it hold up today by today's standards and look really really cool.
Yeah, if I could jump in really quick, just to clarify a little bit before you give your thoughts, Mike. So when I talk about the platforming, it's a, like I said, it's a minor tweak thing. Like it's not game breaking or like, oh, I don't want to play this. It's a minor thing. But I did run into a few times where can I jump there? Can I do that? Like I wasn't 100% sure this was the way I needed to progress. And obviously trial and error, you figure it out and you move on. So it's just little things like that. I mean, overall, as a platformer, combining it with some of your psychic powers and all that, it felt good to play. I am actually curious with both of you how you felt about the speed of the game. Like when you hop on the levitation ball, obviously you can move a lot faster. It did feel a little slow to me. That I was hoping it would speed up somewhat. But I mean, overall, this isn't anything. These are just nitpicks. This isn't anything where the game's bad or anything like that. This is unplayable. It's just kind of okay. They still have a little bit of time. Maybe there's a couple tweaks here or there they could fix. I also played on Windows 10, and I noticed there were some frame rate issue things that they needed to. Like I had to turn VSync on at one point to kind of lock in the frame rate because it was getting a little juddery if I didn't. It seemed fine for the most part when I played on the Series X. But other than that, I mean, like I said, nitpicks. This is, trust me, I wish I had a controller in my hand playing it right now. But but those were kind of just the things. If I had anything to critique, that stood out to me.
Yeah, and I just wanted to get those out of the way because I know that we're gonna kind of really gush about this game, and yeah, I think the kind of slight downsides we had with the preview, like it definitely don't affect just all of the highs that I went through playing through this preview. So just wanted to make that clear as well.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up, Parris, of like, because me and Barrett are coming hot off the heels of our first ever Psychonauts, playthrough and experience, and it's like, you can see the elevation, right? That's a 16-year-old game moving into what I just put my hands on. So it's like, did it feel fast or did it feel slow? It's like, it feels like it's modernized to me, right? It feels just at home perfectly with the combat elevation, which I loved. You see the new dash dodge mechanic, right? You didn't really have that right on a button ready to go on the first one. You had to actually aim and then dodge. And it's just one of those, like, you can tell a lot of the controls were modernized and it felt right to me. And I actually played on the Xbox Series S over the week that I had it, and I had a lot of fun checking it out on that consoles. Of course, we always talk about the X, so we talk about the PCs. I thought, you know what, I'll jump over on the S and see what that feels like. And I think the art style, no matter what you play on, is going to pop regardless, right? It just has that special art style where the colors pop, the whole look of it has this unique feel. But for me, when I look at it as a whole, like, I'm smiling from year to year. I had an incredible experience and I'm having a rocking year. I brought it up before, but coming hot off the heels of It Takes Two with Joseph Ferris and over at that team with Hazelight to Insomniac with Ratchet and Clank to this, like I'm having a fun 3D platformer year right now. These guys are hitting it and it's like, okay, good. If you liked those two, if you were interested in that, Psychonauts is going to hit for you. And I think what kept me coming back is that story and those themes, right? I think it's something where, yeah, I had that experience just last week of Psychonauts 1, but the idea of dealing with mental health and talking about what happens in other people's minds with these different, illusions or self-doubt or worry, and we'll
Yes,
talk about
yes.
those. Like there was just so much where it's like, man, this made me smile. This made me think. This made it fun. This made me laugh. And it is just so weird to think about something where, when we talk about mental health, usually we don't talk about it in this light, or we don't really bring it to video games that often. And I think this team has made it where you can play this and you'll really take something away from it. And I think every single level, it challenges you just to sit for a moment and think about it, right? Think about that new enemy type. Think about the characters you meet and the minds that you're going into and what they're dealing with and what your impact is on that. And I think we'll talk about it in just a minute, but when we jump in and we start to talk about that mental tether, which is like kind of your like lasso zip line to go to different things, and you can connect thoughts, right? And how you make an impact on that person's mind by connecting their thoughts in a different way was really interesting to see. And so I'm coming hot off of this of like, wow, oh, wow, this is a put on your radar must play right now because I had an extremely great time with it. And that's where I want to kind of move into next is the story and the themes that we did get to see, right? We'll talk about gameplay now. We'll kind of open it up to anything you guys want to talk about. But Parris, you talked about it. This game comes hot off of the moments of Psychonauts 1 and, of course, their VR game, Rhombus of Ruin. If you haven't seen any of those, if you haven't played any of those, if it's been a long time, they have a great little intro sequence that will get you all caught up on the story. But you are immediately dropped in with Raz and the team, and you're going to the Mother Lobe, which is, Psychonauts HQ, and it felt like home. It actually was really cool for me. It had the themes of, hey, you meet the interns, aka the kids, right? And it has that same summer campy vibe. But then on the flip side, like the Mother Lobe is this like cool centralized world where there's all the characters. And for me, it kind of made me feel like Men in Black, right? That opening sequence of Men in Black when, Jay goes in there and he's looking at all the different aliens walking around. That's what it felt like. And it was a really cool setting to kick off the start of the whole thing.
Completely agree. I love kind of like you're explaining almost like this hub world that you'll be in once you get past the initial intro things that you do at the start of the game, and you can kind of freely walk around, interact with different characters and everything. And obviously you can start to push the story forward if you so choose. But that's the kind of the beauty of this, that it felt like home. It felt like a place I had been to before within this world of the Psychonauts. So, I loved being in there. I think the thing that I take away the most from this, and again, I'm really trying to not spoil anything, is as an example, Raz goes into someone's mind to try to fix a bigger problem, changes this person's mind, and then breaks that person, and then has to basically go back into that person's mind to fix it again. And the guilt that Raz feels for doing what he did, even though he had good intentions. And again, when we talk about mental health and how this all works in the real world, that kind of stuck with me a little bit. Like, wow, I go, this is deeper than you actually think. And I love that, which really, again, is another reason why I really want to deep dive more into this world. The fact that one of the first things that they talk about, and it's just a small scene, but Raz's fear of water. And why? Because he thinks he's cursed. And what is that going to mean in the bigger picture as we move through this game? I love the little character moments that we had with some of the other interns. And I'm trying so hard to not spoil anything, but their interactions and different motivations from characters that you can see that potentially could pay off down the road. And this isn't even gameplay. This is why I say the writing in this is so strong. And again, the voice cast, they obviously still got some of the people from the past, and just everyone that's involved in it right now. It's so strong that I want to know what's going to happen next. I care already about Raz and these other characters in this world and their motivations, and obviously ultimately the quote unquote big bad potentially, that's going to be in this game. All these things that are happening. That's what makes this great to me. And that's what's so good about gaming in general. Sure, you can have all the platforming and the combat, but if you have a good story, if you have really good writing that could suck you into that world, I mean, that's what it's all about. Like, it literally, I want to be a Psychonaut. I think that's the best way I can put it, right? I want to go do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And, piggybacking off of that, it's funny, we talk about the big bad, and I think that was one coming off of Psychonauts 1, right? You kind of have Oleander, who's kind of doing some stuff. You have Dr. Lobato, but now it feels like now we have like a really centralized big bad, right? If you've played through Psychonauts 1, both those baddies were cool, but they didn't do much. I think this one is going to be really cool, but I want to touch on those themes again because we have new enemy types, Barrett, and I think this one stuck with me as we talk about the mental health and stuff like that. When you look at the new baddies coming in, right, you have, let me find my notes really quick. You have new ones like regret, right? Or self-doubt, which are like slow moving puddles of mud that you can light on fire, or regret, which is like carrying mental baggage and weight around, and you can pull them down and hit them back with it. There's bad ideas that blow up in your face. And I thought that was a really fun way of like tackling some of these themes and making them unique, making them different. Of when you see them for the first time, you're like, oh man, I know what the sensors are, or oh man, like an enabler. Yeah, that's what they would do, right? And so they fit in so well to the gameplay and what they do. And it makes you smile when you sit there and see them, because like it is a really thought out and thoughtful way of putting these kind of ideas and the mental health aspect into the game and making them fun and unique ways to play off of it.
Yeah, again, like the first one, I think like compared to what we played of the preview, I feel like the first one just scratched the surface, and like seeing what they're doing with the preview is like really impressive. Again, how they're tying it all together, which is what I really love. Like, to piggyback of what you were saying, Parris, of like the connecting certain thoughts and how that kind of snowballs into this like whole bad idea and kind of blows up in a lot of people's faces. It like even the simple commentary of like, there is a healthy way to look at something and like an unhealthy way to look at something. And they could both, looking at that same thing from two different perspectives, could give you the same end result, but the different ways that you look at it might affect after that, right? And there's just like little things like that that they make commentary on early on in the game. And just like there's a level that we played which was all centered around anxiety, and how like all of this like anxiety and self-doubt, which is something that I personally deal with a lot. I love how they kind of show that near the end of that sequence. Again, I don't want to spoil too much, but like how they kind of comment of like it was really all in his head, and like how he is in control of the quote unquote like kind of bad guys in that level, which I absolutely love, of like his kind of cognition of these people aren't really how these people are in real life. It's just how he sees them, and him trying to get over that hump. And then, there's a level where it was all about archetypes and kind of different versions of yourself, and not being tied to a specific one, but allowing these different parts of yourself and different parts of your history to kind of define you as a whole, and not to be stuck to like one aspect of your life. And there's just like a lot of, even just in the preview stuff, a lot of beautiful things that they were kind of commenting on with mental health. And I absolutely adored everything story and thematically that we got to play through. And again, like you were saying, Mike, of just like even like the new enemy types, and like every time they got introduced, I was like absolutely in love with it, especially with like the title card, like everybody gets now. They all have their own little moment. I adored it so much. And yeah, with like the story of like where it starts off, right? Like I tried to watch a video of Rhombus of Ruin, because I'm not gonna play VR because VR makes my tummy real sick. So I was trying to watch that, and then I haven't gotten back to it. I want to finish watching a playthrough of that before this comes out. But yeah, like the recap I think will be really helpful, especially for people who might not be able to play Psychonauts 1 and Rhombus Room before 2 comes out and they want to play 2. I still encourage you to at least try out Psychonauts 1 since it's on Game Pass and you can check it out. But even just like kind of like the kind of early story that they introduced of like we're saying the other interns and like Raz no longer being part of the camp, and it wasn't one of those interesting things where I had a feeling like we weren't going to see a lot of the camp members, and I was like wondering of like, oh, am I going to miss that same crew of like the redheaded bully and like the two twins who seem to be like up to some like cultist like murder like mission and like all this stuff, and I was sort of like, oh man, am I like, even though like, you know, and then there's oh shit, the kid with the foil on his head to protect his brain, but he's the first one who gets his brain stolen. I forget his name, but like even like I hope like maybe we get a cameo of them, but I was wondering of like, oh, am I gonna miss that cast of characters? And being introduced to the other interns early on, and having Raz kind of fully experience the Psychonauts facility and not starting off on the best of feet with the other interns, I didn't think about the original cast of characters from the camp. The entire time I was playing, I was like really invested with all of these other interns that Raz is hanging out with, and you know, seeing their story early on and how that kind of goes into a new era of friendship for Raz and some other characters. Yes. And I'm really excited to see like all of them kind of hang out and see like where they end up throughout the rest of the story, and see how we get to possibly deep dive with some of those other characters. So yeah, that's with the story and themes and stuff. I just, that was a major part of like, I was grinning from ear to ear almost the entire time, just because I was so sold on everything that they were doing. And
Lily's back.
Yes, she is.
Yeah.
One thing I want to piggyback off of what you were talking about, Barrett, because I was going to bring that up to the one level at where there's a lot of anxiety and stress happening in. I love that they took the actual gameplay and made that very stressful and gave you anxiety too, because I had it the entire time, right? But and that's kind of the beauty. That's why I hope to see more of that. And you know, as you progress through the game, and obviously we hit some of the story beats and some of the other characters that we'll meet. One that you and I were talking about offline before we started, another character moment that I loved, and I won't spoil the premise of it, but you meet this couple that wants to have a baby, and you basically have to help them have a baby. And then the conversations that is happening during that scene, it's great. I mean, it's absolutely great. And again, this is what I was talking about before. I think the writing and the voice cast is so top tier in this that it really immerses you into that. Look, $3 gajillion. You'll see when you play it. It means a lot, but yeah, it's great, man.
And like we talk so much about like trying to nail comedy in video games and stuff like that, and it was impressive to go back to the first Psychonauts and like all of the kind of like classic, almost like early 2000s Cartoon Network era cartoons and Nickelodeon and all that stuff, and like how much the first one reminded me of that, and how there was like a lot of humor in that first one. And I was like, man, like I don't feel like when people talk about comedy in video games, they never bring up this Psychonauts, and I'm super surprised about that. And like even the comedy in this one was just like, it was so gold, and there's like a lot of laugh out loud moments, which again is impressive. When you're nailing comedy, you're nailing like almost like get hype moments, and then commentary on mental health and just these cool creative worlds, and even like bleeding that into the gameplay. Like there's some fun side-scrolling stuff that we eventually get into that I'm showing on screen right now. That was just like, it was just all of it coming together was just, it was awesome. It was really cool.
Yeah, those moments are really special. And I want to give a shout out to some of the callbacks from the original Psychonauts that you'll see. Of course, figments of the imagination are back, the big collectibles. And that was one thing. This is a hands-on preview, and our save isn't carrying over. And I wanted to search for all of them, right? I wanted every single one. And probably by level 2, I was like, you better slow down, Mike, because we might make this a 10-hour preview if you try to grab everything.
I couldn't stop myself.
But that's also part of it too. There's the quote unquote collectathon that's inside it. but it didn't feel monotonous to me. It didn't feel grindy to me. Like I wanted to go do it, which is another great sign.
Oh, it encourages exploration because, of course, the scavenger hunt is back in a new way.
Yes.
I want to give a big shout out to memory banks. Memory banks, to me, I think are one of the coolest pieces of storytelling that Double Fine and Psychonauts has, where there is no little mini cutscene. There's no voice acting. It's just about like 5 pictures. And I think you always remember the word, a picture's worth 1,000 words, right? And you scroll through these 5 different pictures and you kind of put that story together. Of course, they're kind of telling it, but like in your mind, you interpret it the way you want. So it's like really cool when we have this conversation later on of like, we'll talk about one and I want to know what like Parris thought of it or what Barrett saw of it, right? Because it's only 5 pictures. There's no words. There's no writing. You interpret it how you want to. And I really love that kind of aspect.
And like again, I love that aspect too, which is from the first game, and it's just one of those things when like those memories that you do lock away, you only really have like quick snippets of like what really went down. So again, the way that they're able to represent a lot of things is really impressive.
But before I forget, and maybe you're going to bring this up, Mike, but I know we touched on it lightly at the top. Shout out to the art team on here for just, my God, it's so good. Like the teeth. Like it is, as much as that might freak you out, just the way they've designed that in the level, it's so good. So I mean that, and we've even seen in some of the other screenshots and things that'll probably come up later in the game. There's so much diversity to the level design that's in here, and I think that's great too. It's not we're just doing the same things over and over. It's almost like the old Flintstones where they just kept scrolling the same scene in the background the entire time. It's so diverse, the different color palettes and just designs that we see. Again, phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal so far. Love it.
The one comedy thing that I want to shout out before I forget with that same cooking show kind of anxiety level is just there's a lot of ingredients in the audience, which is just like so morbid that they're psyched to be selected to be participating in the show, but they're about to be like cooked. And I just want to shout out the part that I laughed out loud the most is to be able to cut things. There's like this almost like mechanical pig that like has like a cleaver that you're using to cut things, and on the third dish you need bacon, I think, and you grab a pig in the audience and you take it up to the mechanical pig, and it's like, Grandpa, and it's just like shit like that where I was like, oh my, little stuff like the little moments where I'm like, oh, this is so good, and like it a lot of those little things like never stop. Like they have so many good little moments like that are so good.
It's great. And yeah, Parris, big shout out to the art team. And you'll hear it when we talk with Tim Schafer later of like just letting your imagination run wild. You bring up that art team and it's like, if there's one place I would love to spend a week at, it would be Double Fine with that art team and just seeing what they come up with, what they draw, the colors they use, the crazy, imaginative, creative, unique ideas that they want to touch on and talk about and show off, because every single level feels unique. Every single thing feels like it should be there, but it's also outrageous. And it's like, why is it there? And then you're like, I love it because it's so weird and crazy. And it's an absolute blast. And yeah, the art really drives it forward. I want to touch on one final thing before we get out of here and get into that interview, of course, is the combat. And I think that's one thing coming hot off of number 1. It's elevated. It is so much more refined. It is really, really good. And I think there is so much to show from it. Of you can not only see the elevation for 15 years, of course, and making it so modern, but you have new moves and all of them are mappable at a press of a button really fast. And on top of that, I love that the side blast isn't drawn to you collecting, small orbs anymore. It's just on a cooldown. And now you have 4 instead of 3. And like, there's all these small quality of life things that they really elevated on the combat, where now the combat really feels rewarding and fun, and you feel in control in these fights from small to big, no matter where you are. And that's a big one that stood out to me, was how good the combat is.
Yeah, I mean, I touched it on a little bit at the top. It felt good overall, and I loved it. Like you said, I love that it's easily customizable where you want to slot the different weapons, and I love the upgrade path that you have for all of them as well. I think it makes sense in this world, and it feels right. It's fun. It's fun to play. Like I said, probably a couple little tweaks they could do here or there on a few things, but overall, it felt solid. It felt good. to play. It felt good to use the different abilities that you have in certain situations against certain enemies. Like you can even combine a couple of them depending on the enemy type. But yeah, I mean, I liked it, and I think people will have fun with a lot of fun with this when they're playing it, especially with some of the particular enemies where, you know, once you kind of figure out their attack patterns, you know, like, okay, I can hit him with the fireball here, I could grab this and I could throw that, hit my levitation ball, get around him. You know, there's all these different things you can do. So I think it'll be a lot of fun.
The combos are going to be dope, and it's funny you bring that up because I was watching other previews and people were attacking an enemy type totally different than I was. And I was like, I didn't even think of that. Yeah. I did this and I found that it helped me, but like, I didn't know you were doing that. And so I think with the list that you have, and like you said, how fast you can remap and change them on the fly, it's going to really lend to like, be creative, be different, be you, have fun with it. So yeah, I love that. Bear, what you think about that?
Yeah, I again, coming at what we were saying earlier, coming off of Psychonauts 1, and I think they do a lot to make it not feel too different from the original, but just give it some modern updates.
Modernize it.
Yeah, modernize it. Be able to, like, Mike, you're saying, like, we kind of had a dodge in the original. I'm a little hazy on that. But then, like, there's a full, like, dodge roll. I do think there's, like, a counterattack, or maybe I'm thinking of a different game because I've played so many different games in the last week, so they're all melding together.
Death's Door.
Yeah, you're thinking of Death's Door.
Mike, in one weekend, I got a code for Death's Door. I got the Psychonauts 2 preview build and Skyward Sword all in, like, the span of 24 hours. And I was like, oh, God, I have a lot of embargoes to hit. And so... yeah, there's like a lot of like just little things that I was like, oh man, this feels so good. And yeah, it felt like a little more focused as well. Like even just like there was like a focus toggle, I think, in the original one, but like just like the little update they made there, I think helps a little bit, and just feel a little more better, feel a little more natural. And yeah, so I had nothing bad to say about the combat. It felt, again, a lot like the original, but just little tweaks here and there to make it feel a little more accessible and a little more just modernized. And same with the 3D platforming, like I was saying earlier. There's just like little tweaks here and there, like it doesn't deviate too much. A lot of modern improvements, and just yeah, it all to me felt pretty natural and good, and nothing to like I was able to do with the first one, nothing where I could like kind of like break a lot of the platforming and stuff like that. Like it all felt pretty smooth to me, and I'm really excited to play more of it. So yeah.
Let's end it with the final two questions here. I'll go around the room right now. Wow moments that you look forward to seeing others participate in and that you were wowed by, and should people put this on their radar for games to check out as we head towards the end of summer and into the fall/holiday season? Parris, what do you think?
I can't wait until people fight the octopus, because there's again, don't want to spoil it. There's a couple things, and there's a few dialogue things that happen during that stand out to me that I think people will really enjoy. As far as your second question goes, I said it earlier in the week. I feel like this is shaping up, because this is a preview. We haven't played the entire game, but this is shaping up to be in the conversation at the end of the year. Like I can see Jeff Keighley talking about this game in December, right? That's what this is, because again, the writing is strong. We talked about the art, the music is there. Combat, in my opinion, is good enough. Couple nitpicks, but beyond that, we've talked so much about Xbox not having that platformer, that IP, that guy that you can look to. It's going to be Raz. Raz is going to be it.
I'm sorry it wasn't Banjo, Parris. I'm sorry.
Oh, I know.
But at least that's something I wanted to bring up. Of like, this is a question that you guys have brought up like for months. Of like, when is Xbox going to have their Ratchet and Clank moment? And like, I totally agree with you. Like, this is it. This is their game this year. And yeah, technically, this game had started development before Xbox had purchased Double Fine. But there's a reason that they looked at Double Fine to be a part of their Xbox family. And I think what Double Fine is able to bring to the table, I think it's gonna fill that void of a family-friendly 3D platformer adventure game type of game that I think Xbox was lacking in the last few years. So I think this is their answer.
Yeah, and I feel like one last thing, and I'll move it on to you, Mike. To me, this game, I felt like we were just scratching the surface of what this game is. So I think it's a lot bigger. And again, I don't know because we'll obviously see at the end of August, but it feels like it's a lot bigger than I probably initially thought it was going to be, which obviously is great too. But this isn't going to be it for Raz and that cast of characters.
Wow.
And that's where I kind of think, hey, yeah, this may have started off as, as something before, it was a Kickstarter, crowdfunded game. But now that it's under Microsoft Game Studios, now that Double Fine has all those resources behind them, I'd be shocked if we don't see more from Raz and all those guys, if we don't see more of that world of Psychonauts beyond this, because it just makes sense. It's fun, and why wouldn't you continue to do something with this? And like we said, they need a mascot. They don't need a mascot, but it's good to have a mascot. It's good to have a platformer on Xbox, and I just think this is going to be the start of that.
Barrett, should people put this on their radar?
One wow moment that I want to say really quick, just for me personally. I wasn't going to mention this originally, but since we, time is a flat circle thing, we already did the Tim Schafer interview by the time that we're recording this, and he brings it up in the interview. I just want to shout out the archetype ability that we are able to experience at one point in the preview. You get to make a kind of a specific version of yourself, this paper version of Raz, who can help you open doors that you wouldn't be able to fully access. And I think also kind of at least like distracts people during fights, or helps actually give some damage. I wasn't able to focus on him too much, but as some of you know, Richard Horvitz is the voice of Raz and is the voice of one of my childhood mainstays, Invader Zim. And I was quick to hear that the archetype version of Raz, this paper version of Raz, is the voice of Gurr. And that was the moment where I tweeted out that vague tweet of video games are cool, because that was such a special moment for me to see that reunion between the voice of Zim and the voice of Gurr. And I know people who are roughly my age who grew up with Invader Zim are just gonna absolutely love having this little paper doofus follow you around and just kind of do his Gurr thing, and it's amazing and incredible, and I just absolutely loved it. And it was from that moment on that I was just like, I absolutely love everything this game is doing. And then transitioning into that second question, is this a game that people should have on their radar? I absolutely agree with Parris. I think this will be a big point of conversation for Game of the Year. I said on PS I Love You XOXO earlier this week, I'm going to be very surprised if it's not a top contender for my personal Game of the Year. Again, I feel like we've only scratched the surface. Again, this is only a preview. We'll see where the final product lands. But of what I've played, I'd be very surprised if it's not high up there for my personal Game of the Year, and I'd be very surprised if it's, when I eventually make my top 10 personal Game of the Year list, I'd be very surprised if it's below Ratchet and Clank. Just of what I know of what Ratchet and Clank does with the story and gameplay, I really loved. You can ask my wife, where I was playing that game late at night, and she'd be like, "What are you gasping at? This little kids game, this little 3D platformer you're playing as a space fox? What are you doing?" I love that game, but everything that we saw from this preview and how it all came together and all the commentary that literally everything we've been talking about this entire time, I was blown away, and I can't wait for next month.
Put it on your radar. Check it out. Give it a try. It's on Game Pass.
Play the
original. It's a ton of fun. Play the original. Check out the original or watch a recap. It's really, really great. And it is just like Parris and Barrett both said, this is that 3D, family-friendly mascot console platformer that I've always wanted, right? He isn't my dream mascot, and I don't think he will be, like you said, Parris, but this is scratching that itch, and this is something that we need in the pantheon of games coming from Xbox, right? This is that conversation we always have with Phil, and what do you need in the portfolio? Here's one good step towards filling out that portfolio in my mind, which I'm really pleased to see. And my wow moments are the worlds, the gigantic boss fights that after 15 years, they're going to wow you. They're going to really wow you, and you're going to love every moment of it. So go out there, enjoy it. Get ready for August. This was a ton of fun, and really get ready, because right after a word from our sponsors, you're going to hear from the man himself. Tim Schafer is going to sit down with me and Parris, and we're going to have a blast talking about Psychonauts 2 and, of course, all of his video game lineage. So please sit back, relax, and enjoy that. Take a word from our sponsors, and we'll see you on the back half of the show.
This podcast is brought to you by ExpressVPN. Guess what? You're on the internet and people are always trying to get into your data, so hide your data from them, right? Using the internet without ExpressVPN is like taking a call on a train or a bus on a speaker for everyone to hear. So I'll say what I'd say to anyone putting a private call on speaker in public transport. Don't be that person. Internet service providers like Comcast or Verizon know every single website you visit. And in the US, they can legally sell this information to ad companies and tech giants who then use your data to target you. ExpressVPN creates a secure, encrypted tunnel between your device and the internet so people can't peep your online activity. Just fire up the app and click one button. It works on phones, laptops, even routers. So everyone who shares your Wi-Fi can be protected. Secure your online activity today with expressvpn.com/kindafunny and get an extra 3 months free. That's expressvpn.com/kindafunny, expressvpn.com/kindafunny. Our next sponsor is Upstart. So many Americans experienced financial hardship in the last year. Upstart can help you regain your footing and get things back on track. Upstart is the fast and easy way to pay off your debt with an online personal loan. Whether it's paying off credit cards, consolidating high interest debt, or funding personal expenses, over 500,000 people have used Upstart to get one fixed monthly payment. Upstart knows you're more than just your credit score and is expanding access to affordable credit. Unlike other lenders, Upstart considers your income and current employment to find you a smarter rate for your loan. You can receive funds as fast as 1 business day after accepting your loan. Find out how Upstart can lower your monthly payments today when you go to upstart.com/kindafunny. That's upstart.com/kindafunny. Don't forget to use our URL to let them know we sent you. Loan amounts will be determined based on your credit, income, and certain other information provided in your loan application. Go to upstart.com/kindafunny. And our final sponsor of the day is Credit Karma Money. Credit Karma has always been there to help you make better financial decisions, and now they want to help you even more. With a Credit Karma Money Spend account, you can be rewarded for good money habits. Credit Karma Money is a brand new checking account where you can win cash reimbursements for making purchases. There's no minimum balance requirements, no overdraft fees, and free withdrawals from a network of over 50,000 ATMs. And when you make a purchase between July 1st and July 23rd, you'll be automatically entered to win $1 million. Right now, visit creditkarma.com/win money to open your free account and start winning instant karma. Go to creditkarma.com/win money to sign up for free and start winning instant karma. That's creditkarma.com/win money. Instant Karma is sponsored by Credit Karma. No purchase necessary. Exclusions and terms apply. See rules. Banking services provided by MVB Bank Incorporated, member FDIC. Maximum balance and transfer limits apply. Again, creditkarma.com/win money.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. We're up now with a fun interview. Of course, I'm joined by Parris, but we have a special guest right now, one of the raddest dudes in video games, the head honcho of Double Fine Productions. Tim Schafer has joined us. Tim, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I feel like one of the raddest dudes. Did you say raddest dudes in games? Yeah.
Raddest dudes in games. I was thinking of like a fun way to intro you, but you know, Tim, when I think of you and your team, I think of 3 letters, and that's fun. And so I wanted to put a little fun spin on that.
It was fun. It was fun. I feel great. We let people play our game for the first time. People liking it, and that's a great feeling. Parris said some nice things himself. Got it. A tough audience, but so far so good. Yeah.
That's great to hear. Of course, the preview is now out. A lot of reception, a lot of positive reception around Psychonauts 2. And of course, that's why we brought you on. We're going to talk about Psychonauts 2. But really, Tim, I want to take some time and just talk to you about all the fun things you've done in the video game industry. So this interview is going to start off with Psychonauts 2, and then we're just going to deep dive into Double Fine and you and a whole lot of fun. So let's kick it off with the start, of course. Psychonauts 2 coming right around the corner next month. You and the team put out the preview build. Let's start there. How you feeling today after seeing all the previews come out, the positive reception? How does you and the team really take that?
It's so great because we've been working on it for so long, and we have this mix. Double Fine's been around for 20 years. Psychonauts was our first game, so we have a mix of some old timers have been there for 18, almost 20 years, and then we have a lot of new people. And so the game is a mix of like things people loved about the first game, and plus this new team bringing new improvements to it and making it more modern and making it feel better and play better. So having people finally see that is really gratifying to know that all paid off. People noticed.
Heck yeah, we all noticed.
So I have to jump in this way. First of all, playing Psychonauts 2, it's been phenomenal so far. I can't wait until August 25th gets here so I can continue where I left off. The writing, the voice cast, fantastic. But the music, I don't think people have talked enough about the music, the soundtrack that you have in this game. Can you kind of talk about some of the inspirations that you had for that?
Yeah, we one of the great things is that we have access to both our new team, but also the original composer, Peter McConnell, who did the original Psychonauts and has done music for every game I've worked on, back to like Day of the Tentacle and some of the Monkey Island games he worked on. So Peter's been there for everything, and he's very versatile, which is really helpful in a game like Psychonauts where there's no setting except for the human mind, and like every level is like there's a a gambling level and a level that's like a TV show, and there are all these different genres of music. And Peter's one of his great things is that he can just do any genre and just nail it. And then we have our own internal sound resources like Camden Stoddard and Paul O'Rourke, who make it, arrange it and make it fit all the different situations, because we have a lot of like cinematic moments and so the inspirations are we just talk about how the level should feel with the composers, and they really are great at just getting what we mean, the designers, and just making it happen musically in a way that is just amazing to us, because you work really hard to make the game great, and you're like, okay, we made this really emotional and it's great and it plays really well, and then the music goes on top of it and takes it so much farther than you could without it.
That's really well said. I think the music, I agree, Parris, really takes it to that next level and hits on a lot of great moments there. I want to talk about, you brought up Double Fine and you talked about this being one of your first games there. Now we look back, it's 15 years later, you're doing a sequel, not something you and the team do very often with a sequel. You put out the story trailer, you said, yeah, everybody there, it's a story for Psychonauts 2. How did you build off of that after so long and decide, this is what the story is going to be? We want to go back with Raz. How did that come about after so long?
Well, I had this little notebook of ideas near the end of Psychonauts 1. There were these things we planted in the game that we wanted to talk about in a possible sequel someday. Like this curse. There's a curse from the Galocchios family that cursed Raz's whole family to die in water. And we just kind of mention it off. Oh, by the way, we're cursed to die in water. No big deal. It's like, what is that all about? Where'd that come from? Why did that happen? And we show these little elements, like there are these stumps out in the woods in the first campgrounds that have all these characters on it that never appear in the game. And there's this, Ford Cruller is this character who can teleport all around, and his brain works different than everybody else's, and that's really not explained. And so I wrote backstories for everyone to do all this like lore that no one ever sees, and wrote all deep lore for Ford, and wanted to do a sequel about it. But Psychonauts was a game that it took a long time to find its audience. Like through digital distribution, it really reached a lot more people over the years, and that just kind of went up and up and up to the point where there was like a critical mass of fans finally to like, yes, we can do a sequel now. We can tell these stories, and we can explain the water curse and what it means to Raz and his whole family. And so, so that process is really just a long time in the making, and it's really satisfying to be like, yeah, we're going to pay off on all these. If you like the first game, we're going to pay off on all these things. And if you've never played a Psychonauts game before, we'll explain it to you. We'll take time to explain it to you.
Yeah, I think you did a great job at the opening, where you kind of give a recap from the first game to kind of get people up to speed who've never played it, or it's literally been 10 or 15 years
Previously
played the first one, right? So that was great. Now, I want to take this in this direction. Tim, I know you were on Spawn on Me with Khalif Adams, and I really hope he didn't try to serve you any food, because that would have been terrible. But it brings me to mental health. And I know that mental health is one of the aspects that you've weaved into the narrative of the game. So can you kind of talk about that and the importance of that in the Psychonauts story?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of just is built into the gameplay mechanics. Empathy, like you're literally seeing the world through other people's minds, you're jumping into their heads. So you're going to see things like nightmares and demons and maybe more serious things going on in their heads. And it's still really like a lighthearted, comical game, but since we're in there inside people's minds, we have to think about what these things represent to people. And, and mental health is one of those things. It's not like a foreign culture you have to learn about in a book. It's like we all have brains. We all have experience with anxiety or depression or more serious things going on in our families, so it's part of all of our lives. And so we really wanted to make sure that we were handling it properly, and part of it just came from our own like family experiences and stuff, but then also Xbox and Microsoft exposes us to a lot of great resources, actual clinical psychologists and doctors who can like look at what we're doing and kind of help us adjust the language of the presentation to make sure it doesn't actually cause harm in the player. In general, we want the game to be enjoyed by everybody, game to be enjoyed by a lot of different people, and so that was just one more step, making sure that it's fun for everybody.
I like that. And of course, last week we talked with Steve Saylor about accessibility, and a big one on everybody's mind was the awesome accessibility features that you and the team have put together, along with that mental health advisory warning at the beginning of like, hey, if this triggers you in any way, shape, or form, seek help. You even put a nice area people to go search for help for. What does that mean to you, and how did you and the team come up with really pushing accessibility to the forefront?
We've that's one place where even before we were with Microsoft, we had the similar interests. So we worked with Double Fine's worked with Special Effect, which is a group in England that works with a lot of severely disabled people so they can still play games, whether they have a special controller. Some people even just playing games with their eyes, just look where they're gazing, and there's we learned that there's some simple changes you can make to a game like Day of the Tentacle or Broken Age. We made small adjustments so that you could use an eye gaze controller, for example, and I know with things like the adaptive controller, it's something Xbox cares about a lot too. And so that continues to evolve. Like every year, it seems like we learn about new ways to make games more accessible to people who are colorblind or people who are perceiving different, perceive the world in different ways. You can do these things that are not really an advanced technology. It's not some complicated machine learning thing that you kind of just a couple of fixes here and there can make the game accessible to a lot more people. And it really is a question of like, why would you want to exclude those people? There's no reason, right?
No, I would completely agree. There's absolutely no reason to want to exclude anyone from that. But kind of stay along those lines. Like Double Fine, you've had the fantastic YouTube series I've been watching during our COVID times. And it brings me to the question I want to ask you directly. What has been some of the challenges, not only with yourself, but just with the team finishing this game, having to work remote, just everything that's been disrupted here, in the past year or so with COVID-19?
Yeah, it's been a really unique way to ship a game. I mean, we're going to completely ship the game while we're in this state, but in the end, personally for me, I feel really fortunate that there's a lot of people who lost their jobs, a lot of people who obviously got sick and died. And so a lot of people, we've been very fortunate in that we can continue our jobs in roughly the same way that we did before. We still have our computers, we can meet on video conferences and we can make this game. But it is challenging for various team members in different ways. Some people are, locked in a house with a bunch of kids who can't go to school. Some are locked in a house with nobody but themselves, and they deal with the loneliness and things like that. And everyone has a different challenge. And we just, as a company, really care about the quality of life for the employees. And so we've been trying to reach out in different ways to help, whether it's helping people with their internet or their food or, different whatever services we can do to make life better for people. But the thing I've been impressed with is the team itself is really committed to being there for each other. I've noticed like everyone shows up and really extends themselves. You're having a company party and it's not the same as a real company party, but you're on Zoom, but everyone is there, I think, for each other and wants to kind of like do their best to do the best they can during this period. And hopefully it'll be over soon. But I think there's some things we all learned during it. There's little, things we learned about what it's like for our remote workers, because we always had a handful of people who didn't work in the physical offices, and I think they would appear on the screen in the meetings, and we would maybe not be able to get their audio working or whatever. We try like this. They've been a small group of people, but now that we've all been remote workers, I think we'll hopefully learn things that will make remote work better for everybody in the future.
That's really cool. And that's actually something I wanted to segue into, of course, celebrating 20 years of Double Fine, right? That's a big deal. You are all about fun and you're engaging and you're awesome, Tim. How do you make that fun, special, and unique with your team, with everybody at home and inside and away from each other? What things worked? What things didn't work? How did you make this celebration feel special and something that you'll always remember?
We've had some creative things during, we had on Halloween, we all went to a drive-in and we were all in our separate cars, but we were all there together and we let one by one, small groups of kids wander and get candy off each other's hoods and trunks. So we did some social distancing get-togethers like that, and it's funny. I've become a little bit of a streamer internally to like I'm playing Psychonauts 2, and I'm sharing it over video with the team, and they're watching me play and finding bugs, and we're like looking at the game together in a way that was much easier for people to do because they could just be at their desk and see me, and then every once in a while see me fall out of the world and be like, oh, I see a bug, and so that everyone's just like all of us during COVID, just doing our best to keep going.
That's really cool. And I love hearing that you've become a streamer, Tim. It's really, really fun. Have you been working on your intros, your outros? Are you like, share, subscribe? You doing great on that?
Yeah, just smash that bell. Right? Is that a thing? Do you still smash
That's
bells?
the thing is right, Tim.
Yeah.
I love that.
Smash that bell right now.
So
shout out to my super backers.
Right on. Now, question I have for you since we have you, because I've always been curious about this. Now, obviously, Psychonauts 2 originally started off as a crowd-funded game, and during that time, you became a part of Microsoft Game Studios. What has changed for you as far as the vision of what Psychonauts 2 ultimately became? In that, was there things that having the resources and the backing of Microsoft, did it allow you to add in some things that you never thought you would be able to? What changed about the game from what you originally thought you were going to be able to do?
Yeah, that's a great question because we were crowdfunded, which is crazy. We've been through publishers, and the roller coaster of those publishers going away, and it seemed like we were gonna be able to finish, but we would have had to cut a lot of stuff from the game.
Mm-hmm.
Or like we started losing our boss monsters. Our boss fights were disappearing because they're later. They're like, well, that's a part of the level you could snip off, and maybe still finish on time. And when we started talking to Microsoft and we were interested in this, just starting to have the early conversation, they were asking us like, what would you do if you weren't so constrained with your resources? And I put those bosses back in, and I would, in general, just polish the game and just having like extra months to polish the game and play test it and find the weak spots and improve it. That's what I want to do, and that's what we were able to do. They came in and they helped us with that, and so I feel like it's a much better game because of getting involved with Xbox.
That's really cool. What are the fun things do you like when you look at Psychonauts 2? Of course, the previews have come out. We've talked about some of the levels that we as the media have gotten to see and share with everybody out there. But are there some moments that stick with you that you really, really love from Psychonauts 2?
Yeah, I mean, besides all it's obviously a strong narrative game. There's really great acting in it, really great music, and those kind of things that you would expect to hopefully if you played the first game. But there's also a lot more fluid back and forth with the psychic powers. Raz has a bunch of psychic powers, including some new psychic powers that we showed, which is like metal connection, which is like this grappling hook, and a time bubble that you can use to slow down things, both puzzles and enemies, and then this little buddy that you have. This you can project an archetype into the world, which is a little character that will follow you around and throw switches for you and distract enemies. And I love that it's the Richard Horvitz, who does the voice of Raz, the voice of Invader Zim, and we got the actor who plays Gur in Invader Zim to play the little archetype. So it's a little bit of a tiny Invader Zim reunion for fans in that. But what I like is that our new team of designers have integrated all those psychic powers into the gameplay more, I think, than the first game. So while you're in combat, you can actually use all these time bubble and stuff on enemies, as and you'll switch back and forth. Some enemies are burn better than other enemies that are more grapple hook focused, and so it's just it's a lot deeper. It has a lot more variety in the combat, and also the puzzle solving using the psychic powers. So that's been really fun in the new game for me.
That is awesome. Matter of fact, in the preview for what we got to play, was it Compton's Cookout? I believe that's the level we got to do. I love the puzzle elements, and when we talk about mental health, I felt like I had a lot of anxiety and stress being able to complete that, but it was fun at the same time, and I love how you've taken the mental health aspects of what Psychonauts represents, but you spin it in a way that's humorous, but it's not disrespectful to what mental health means, to the overall community. Now, one thing I wanted to bring up, kind of bringing this back to the business side, because I'm just really curious from a developer, and I know you're part of Microsoft Game Studios now, but Xbox Game Pass, this game's going to be on it day one. from your point of view, what do you think this is going to do for the game? How do you think the engagement potentially could look now that it's going to be a part of that subscription service?
I think it's really exciting because it's the perfect place for games that Double Fine makes, because we make games, we always want to make something new and surprising that almost makes you go like, what? Like when you see the first trailer, you want you to be a little like, what is that? I've never seen anything like it. Like if we don't get a little bit of confusion right off the bat, then I feel like we're not doing our jobs. But that can be a challenge if you're in a retail store and you're holding two boxes that are $60 and one's a sequel to a game you love and one's just like, what is this? Like that's a hard choice for a player to make. But on Game Pass, the game's there, and it's just the time it takes to download it, you know? And so I think people are a lot more open to experimenting and trying something that I don't even know what that game looks. I don't even know. Let's try it. Let's try that game. And I think, or for me as a player, I noticed like to finish an epic AAA game and you're done, and then you're like, am I ready to jump into another one right now? I want to try one of these little weird things that's in between, you know? And so a subscription service like that, and you know, and then Game Pass lets you try all different kinds of games, like, you know, they're all different sizes and all different tones and stuff. So I think it's really great for our games and helps us reach a much wider audience.
Really, really cool and exciting. And sticking with Game Pass, Tim, you have a lineage of making games. You've been around for a long time, doing some incredible things with so many talented human beings. And when we look at Game Pass, Microsoft has really put an emphasis on preserving older games and giving them a boost through certain features of the new generation of consoles. And you have a lot of games that have been made in the past and now people can play. What is your thoughts on game preservation and keeping those games in the past able to play at a moment's notice instead of dragging out the old original Xbox to try to play these games?
You know, I do have a lot of old retro consoles around my room here, but I do like playing original hardware. But the fact that I can go on my Xbox and play the LucasArts adventures I made in the 90s, you know, like being able to remaster those, first of all, was really great. But then the fact that you can play Full Throttle and Day of the Tentacle and Grim Fandango on the Xbox is this. And it's so immediate. It's right there. It doesn't really take. I don't have to get out the WD-40 and get all the blow on the carts and get all that kind of stuff to get it working. It's just there, and it, you know, it looks great. And yeah, and like you mentioned, all the great humans, the talented humans to be able to work with, getting them together to record commentary for those, I think is important, because you know, it's one thing to play an old game, but to play an old game, but also if you want to see the context for it, like, who made that game, or who were they, what was the world like when they made it? Like, we were able to include a lot of like documentary type things as like a wrapper. That's the gesture I'm making, is the wrapper around the game, so you can kind of see that game in its context, which I think is important. Yeah, game preservation. And just the other night I was up there and I was like, what do I want to play? Am I going to jump into this big game? I ended up playing like Zombies Ate My Neighbors all night, which is like just to revisit our times at Lucas. And I was like, wow, that's there. That's awesome.
That is awesome. Now,
what?
one last question for
it?
me. No,
Thank you brought it up. One of my childhood favorite games ever.
Nice.
Yeah, I got to name some of the levels in that. It was made like in the next building from where I was when I was at Lucas. I didn't work on it, but they did use Purple Tentacle in it. I think they had the Tentacle as a level.
That's awesome.
Mars Needs Cheerleaders was the title suggestion I threw in. That was my suggestion. Yeah. That's my only part about that game.
That is awesome. Now, I have one last question specific for Psychonauts 2. It's more of a technical question. We've seen some of the, like, it's going to be on the Xbox. We've seen on the Series X and the S, it's going to be optimized. On PlayStation, we've seen that PlayStation 4 to PlayStation 5 is going to be backwards compatible. But my question for you more specifically is, will we see an optimized version of Psychonauts 2 on the PlayStation 5?
Right now, we're planning on doing the optimization for the Series X and the Xbox, focusing on that. And I think as we get closer to launch, we'll have more features to announce for that. That's really what we're focusing on, Xbox and PC. Yeah.
Really cool.
Now, it was great that Microsoft allowed us to, like, are we also delivering on all the platforms that we promised in our crowdfunding campaign?
Yeah, if I can side tangent on that, I would assume that was something that was very important to you, obviously, because the game started off as a crowd-funded project. Despite, you know, it going to Microsoft, I would assume that, yeah, you would want to obviously fulfill those commitments.
Yeah, that's what we were able to do. Yeah, so that's great.
Yeah, that is really great. That was a conversation we had a couple of weeks ago when we talked about Psychonauts 2. A lot of people in our comments section were talking about it being crowdfunded and going to different platforms. So that is really cool. It was a statement piece there. Tim, as we start to segue this conversation, I want to talk to you and about Double Fine and about all of your history in games. And I think a really fun one to talk about is now that you are backed by Microsoft and you have the great stories of talking about that Amnesia Fortnite sessions with your team of creating all these different games, right? And you know it so well of like these small indie studios can be make or break on some titles, and you put everything into it and maybe it blows up, maybe it doesn't, or you do smaller titles and try to fund the team through. What is that like now with the backing of Microsoft and Team Xbox? Will you go to that where you look at the team and say, hey, let's break apart and make smaller titles? Or will it be, hey, let's make nothing but big titles from this point forward?
Well, I really haven't set any rules for us going forward. I think our main thing is we follow like our inspiration. So if we have a great idea, like and it was like I want to make a heavy metal game. Okay, we'll make Brutal Legend. Like and I felt inspired to go back to Psychonauts. That's why we made Psychonauts 2. But we do like to do multiple projects at once and explore. Letting people like Lee Petty make games like Rad or Headlander or Stacking and getting other people's viewpoints. I think is important because we want to make we have a lot of ideas and we want them all to come out, and so we do have a thing. Amnesia Fortnite is the name of our game jam that we started in 2007 before there was any other game using the word Fortnite. Let me mention that. Where we just forgot what we were doing for 2 weeks and we split the company up and we made small games, and that's where Costume Quest and Stacking and Iron Brigade and Once Upon a Monster came from. And so and this saved us. Like there's certain times where we like, our project got canceled. What do we do? We have these demos that we made from this game jam, and it saved the company more than once, I think. So it's something we want to keep doing because it really inspires the team, and it really helps new leaders step forward and take on the role of, whether it's art directing or programming or running a project. So we just did it recently. We did a documentary about a lot of the last round of Amnesia Fortnite games, and we'll do it again in the future. And we like to do that documentary. I'm glad to hear that you all watched that documentary because Two Player Productions makes that documentary in-house, and it's just always been really important. It's like a mission, I guess, for me to pull back the curtain because I feel like there's just way too much of a wall between players and developers. Like there's like a sense that they're different types of people, and they are different. I mean, some people just want to play games; they don't want to make them. But there's a lot of like similarities. People who make games also play games and they love games, and I think people who play games could make games, but when I was a kid I didn't know I could. Like I was like, I just play games. I assume they're made by people much smarter than me, and the documentary shows we're not that much smarter or any smarter than anybody. But if people were interested, they probably could work in games if they wanted to. So we're just showing, like, I hope we're showing like what the jobs are. Oh, there's an art director. There's a tech artist. People maybe didn't know that there's someone who just does rigging for, there are all these different jobs, and we just want to show how that's all put together and how creative people work together. So people who are interested and maybe could think about that as a career.
That's really cool.
Actually, Mike, I want you to continue because I know you had a question about Day of the Devs. If you want to jump into that.
Oh, I would love to
You're
talk
wearing
about
that
Day of
shirt.
the
Look
Devs.
at that fine garment you have on.
I'm wearing my shirt, and Tim, I have a lot to ask you about that, and I also want to share my experience. I want to thank Greg Miller for sending me to Day of the Devs. I was down there in San Francisco hosting an esports event, and he said, oh, since you're down here, you got to go check out Day of the Devs. It's happening today. This is a must do. And I didn't know what that was. I had actually been to very few video game conventions in that matter, and I took a chance and went down with a friend. And Tim, I have to say that is a memorable experience I will never forget. It was so much fun to go down to San Francisco and see this experience. It was such a vibe. It was like this cool hipster downtown San Francisco vibe where I was like, oh man, I'm around some cool people. This is fun. And what you set up there, and I'll get to the question soon enough, but I wanted to share my experience because I know you'll talk about it, but to be that close to the developers and be able to go hands-on with certain games and talk to them and ask them questions, and for me to share the enthusiasm about their games with them was really, really special and something I'll always remember. And then on top of that, you were showing off Psychonauts 2, and everybody had special headsets on as if it was a silent disco. And I thought that was such a cool look of like, we were all around and everybody was talking, but then there was just a group of people sitting down watching Psychonauts 2. And then to go outside and you had a live concert. They were actually playing the Sayonara Wild Hearts soundtrack, and it was something I'll never forget. So for that, Tim, I thank you and the team for creating that, and for Greg to put it on. It brings a tear to my eye thinking about how much fun and what an experience that was. And so I wanted to talk about Day of the Devs with you because it is so cool. It is such a special place where you and your team put the spotlight on so many awesome and deserving developers. And so working into that and then working through COVID times, and I got a teaser about you and the gang showing off your incredible backyards this year on Day of the Devs on the virtual stage. So let's start off with the beginning of, what was the idea to create Day of the Devs and have that event go live?
Well, first of all, it's so great that you enjoyed it so much, because I love that. That is like my favorite event of the year. Even if it wasn't ours, and just even when the first trailer for it comes out, usually we're because we have a whole selection committee that takes in all these submissions from around the world for indie games, and then they put them all together in a trailer. And because you work in games for 20 years, you can kind of be like, I've seen it all, blah, blah, blah. And then this trailer comes out, and it's like this explosion of ideas, and you're like, oh my god, games are amazing, video games can do anything. And I feel so inspired to make video games after I see that trailer. And then we wanted to make there are all different kinds of shows, and some are more GDCs for developers and E3s for publishers and distributors, and PAX is for fans. But we didn't really have a fan focused event in San Francisco that we could go to, and we had certain things we wanted to do, like we want to make it free and all ages, and also Greg Rice, who is one of the big proponents of it, founders of it, wanted to have it feel like a music festival, because he loves going to music festivals, and feel a little bit more like a celebration in that way, not just like a marketing, come see the new demos and buy, what it's be a festival. And that's why there's a lot of live music and a lot of interesting things, like having alt controller type games, like games that you can't really necessarily have a strange way of interacting with it, like Line Wobbler or something that you have to play outside. There's some kiosks for outside games. Anyway, so just it used to be just like Greg going down this list of games and curating it, and I Am 8-Bit got involved for early days. They've been doing it with us for 9 or 10 or a million years, and then putting on the event and having all the event wrangling and merch and stuff. So now we have a committee, like I was saying, of people across the industry. It was important for us to be kind of non-denominational as far as platform goes. It's all platforms, and so there's representatives from all different platforms who look at all these games and help pick indie games, because it was right when it was starting to be that problem where there were so many games. How does anything stand? How does a great game get seen or heard about? Because there are so many new ones being released all the time. So that was our goal, is to look at the games that we think are the best or worth checking out, and the developers who you'd most like to meet. All the developers were really great too. We hang out with them while they're in town, and I've been talking for a long time now, but I'm just very excited whenever I talk about Day of the Devs, because it is a great, very positive event, and it's funded. It's free because it's funded by sponsors like Xbox, and various sponsors have given money to make it happen, and we want to keep it going. And it was really sad we couldn't do it in person during the COVID year, but there were great digital versions of it that got wrapped into what Jeff Keighley was doing with Summer Games Fest. And so we reached a lot of people, and that might be some part of it going in the future. We want to bring back the physical show, but it was nice to reach a lot of people, over the internet with that too. But I'm glad you liked it. I'm going to keep doing it.
I loved it, Tim. And please continue to do that. I will always be a big cheerleader and advocate for it now that I've experienced it, and I absolutely love it. So thanks to Parris for giving me that time to talk and ask you about that, because it is really cool. And it is something special. And it's fun. You actually brought up talking about the, COVID times now, and you put it out digitally as part of Summer Games Fest. And it was really cool to be with the Kind of Funny crew and experience that together, right? Everybody was kind of wowed right off the bat of you, like I brought up in the backyard, and the whole team. I really loved the spotlight of, let's get outside. Let's show something else off than my back wall that we've been staring at for a whole year. I really thought that was impactful and nice. But most importantly, to show off those games that I think really wowed people. Like you said, I think you see the sea of games, especially during that week, but there were some moments there, like Music Story, I know me and Barrett really loved, and there were some other ones, that stop motion game, and there's just ones that will always stand out in front of you, and there's your cat cleaning your desk for you.
I didn't say anything. I don't know what you're talking
about. But I love that, and so I wanted to make sure we talk about Day of the Devs, because that was really, really cool. Segueing from that, of course, I want to talk about you, Tim, and your leadership, right? We talk about Double Fine celebrating 20 years, and you have been surrounded by an amazing crew. You've created this really fun atmosphere at the studio, and you've been kind of at the head of that along with some others. What has it been like being the leader of a studio like that, feeling that weight of leadership along with making sure it's fun, and then also seeing people come and go? What's that like to see people move on to bigger and better things, or to stick with you and continue to create awesome stuff?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a long, strange trip, as they say. It starts off, really naively, like I want to make this game Psychonauts. Who can I call? Hello, Xbox. Like, I didn't really know what was impossible. I've been working for 10 years at Lucas already, but I had this really merciful ignorance about what it would take. So I was like, I guess I can do it. And then and I was lucky enough to have a bunch of people I worked with before at Lucas, like Peter McConnell and Peter Chan and Scott Campbell, but also to stumble into new people who were just really great. And it was very, real young. We worked in this warehouse that didn't have heat, and like air, so a really scrappy kind of thing. And it starts as me just like, I want to make this game. And then pretty soon you look up and you're like, oh, I have these people to take care of. Like I have I have to make sure all these people have health. Their healthcare is based on the fact that we're making this game. Cat, if you kick that camera, okay, you hold still. You're cool. So, Cat's like, I'm going to kick the camera. I'm going to kick the camera. So you then you look around you, and it's part of this. You're maturing as a company. Is like, oh, we got to actually think about people and their quality of life, and then making sure that they have their families to take care of, and so the stakes go up. But in the end, the most important thing for us is always to maintain like what we think is important about having a company, which is besides the quality of life for the employees, but also creativity, like being something that represents a company that represents creativity. So the biggest challenge is being committed to creativity when times are tough and the money is short, because it's really tempting to kind of hunker down and just play it safe and like, well, let's make a game that we think everyone will buy. And you're always trying to make a game people will like and buy, but it seems scarier to do something new and surprising when you don't know, when your finances are dependent on it. But I feel like all the biggest hit games were at one point like gave you that same what reaction, like the first time people saw Minecraft or something like that, they're probably like, that what, huh? Like they're all very experimental. When Grand Theft Auto or something like that first came around, they're all broke the mold kind of. So I feel like playing it safe is not any safer. Like there's a lot of, if you look at the bottom of the sales charts, there are about a bunch of games that look like everybody else's games. It's not some guaranteed success. So you might as well kind of go for the fences and just make something worth playing, make something that people haven't seen before. And it feels like you're risking it all, but it's really, to me, the thing that makes it worthwhile. So I'm just really lucky that a lot of people have stuck around at the company, even though we've been, shooting for the moon every time, they're willing to take that ride with us. And I was happy that Microsoft saw value in it and brought us in to have a safe, less stressful launching pad for that moonshot. Hey, I brought it back. Look at that. Yeah. Finished that off. Nice.
Well, I recommend everyone go to the Double Fine YouTube channel because I love how you've kind of chronicled a lot of the things that you're talking about right now. You've talked about in those series of videos, and it's been very fascinating for me to watch and kind of understand the struggles of game development. And you mentioned obviously you've joined Microsoft Game Studios, which taken some of the stress off, but we talk about this on the show all the time when we look at indie games and AA games. You kind of have to take risks to stand out from the crowd, but that same risk that could potentially tank the company. We've seen other games in the past where they've tried to do something unique. It didn't potentially catch on, with the overall community, and then that studio goes away. So I look at what you've done with Double Fine, over these past years and the games that, have come out of this. And obviously even right now with Psychonauts 2, which is about to launch. And I mean, I just give credit to you for taking those risks when you did. And obviously you the studio and you've made it what it's become. And, I hope like with the Day of the Devs and everything else that inspires more people to want to go out here and make these games. Because again, I'll even say with Day of the Devs, it's like, game that's coming out as we're recording this right now is Death's Door. That's the first time I saw it, and I instantly got super excited about it. And we see today all the amazing scores. 2 people made that game, which just blows my mind. But again, just credit to you, Double Fine, and just everything that you've built. so far. And, like I said before, really excited for Psychonauts too.
That's so great. That's so awesome. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I just want to say I 100% agree, and thank you for all the nice things you said.
Heck yeah. Well, I want to end on a positive note. I have 3 questions, but I'm going to take it down to 2, Tim. So let's end this fun time with you with 2 fun ones. First one, I want to know, Tim, I'm reading the about page on Double Fine Productions. I'm getting to know the leader, the head honcho, and there's a part about a 2-day stint at a turkey ranch. And I want to pretend as if all of a sudden Variant Tim showed up. You're the turkey rancher. What was that looking like? And what was that like compared to your other jobs that you've talked about before? What was the turkey ranch like?
That was one of our local industries in Sonoma, where I grew up, was turkey ranch that a lot of the young kids eventually worked at for a stint while they grew up in the town. And I was hoping to work at this record store. It was a summer job in between, and I was like, oh, I really want to work at this record store. This would be amazing. But I'll put it, and they hadn't gotten back to me. So I went to work at the turkey farm. I had to wear a hairnet. I was wearing like a bodysuit. There was a lot of, my job was to clean out the what's left behind when the eggs don't hatch that well out of the trays, out of the hatching trays. There's some business that goes on that you don't want to think about when you're eating turkey, that, life is not pretty, So it was a day of, it was hard work, and I met a lot of, cool people there. And then I heard from the record store, and I was like, I think I'll take that. I think I'll take that job. I think that's good. So, I mean, it's hard work. It made me really appreciate the hard work people go through to make sure you have turkey to eat. That's for sure.
I like that. That's a great story. I think it's one of those. It's really cool to see you talk about the previous jobs with your team and where you are today, and that message of inspiration. You can do anything through hard work, and of course, always having fun. So that was really, really cool, and I liked that. I want to finish my parts, and I'll leave a final question up to Parris if you'd like. But if you take a look at the view stream right now, I'm going to have our good friend Barrett, who is producing the show, bring up a Double Fine logo. And Tim, it's been 20 years. I love that you guys have this incredible mascot, the 2-headed baby. The logo is so pronounced, everybody knows it. But the coolest part is you always throw it out with some different themes. So I have Tim here, Tim Schafer, the man. I had to ask you, what is your favorite themed double-headed baby?
Oh man, we're looking at a lot of them right now. Look at that. I love the original one just because that was, us just starting out and Scott Campbell drawing double everything. The Halloween one is great, but the metal one. Look, I have this. So you can see I have a coaster of that guy, and it's a little wiggle, like regular hair. That's one of my favorites. Mark Hamer drew that. It goes all the way back to LucasArts. If you played old LucasArts games, the little gold guy, do you remember the little like TIE fighter or something like that? The little gold guy would have a lightsaber and like fight off the TIE fighters. And on Grim Fandango, it turned into a skeleton version of the little gold guy. And it's just like these little touches that I feel like in the first few seconds of the game starting out, there's this moment to be like, hey, we're gonna have some fun. Like the game's just starting, but we're gonna have a good time with this game. We're gonna do some special stuff. Like some people told me, just the installer for Grim Fandango, when you press the button to install it, it makes a little sound from a charanga, which is like a Mexican folk instrument made out of an armadillo. That you just, and it's just like a little touch of just like, this game's not gonna be exactly like every game that you played. We're gonna do some special stuff. So I feel like that's how you get a hold of the player early on, is to let them know that you're in for surprises.
I love that. Parris, I'll leave it with you if you want to ask any final questions before we say goodbye.
Well, apparently my dog has a question, so I'll try and interpret that.
Oh, pets.
Actually, my final question, I will go back to Psychonauts 2 and say, next month when everyone gets their hands on this, what is the thing that you want people to take away from the game?
I mean, there's so many things. I want them to get lost in the world of Psychonauts and really have fun. I mean, for all we talk about all these deep issues that are in Psychonauts, but it really is a very just fun physical platforming type game with puzzles and laughs. I hope people find all the jokes funny, even as they're surrounded by horrible visions of teeth and things like that. And I just want to say thank you to all the backers who remembered the first game and made the second game possible before we had our big powerful partners in Xbox. But it's been a long time, and I hope people feel like it's worth the wait. I definitely think it was myself. But thanks for playing in advance.
That's awesome. Well, with that, Tim, we're going to say goodbye. This has been Tim Schafer, one of the raddest dudes in video games, joining us from Double Fine Productions. Tim, one final one. Thanks for inspiring the fun in all of us.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's really nice. Thanks for all the things you said. It's really, it's great being here.
With that, we're going to say goodbye, and that will be the end of our fun Psychonauts 2 interview and episode. Hope you enjoy it. Hope you're looking forward to the fun later in the month of August. And with that, we'll see you guys next week. Bye, everybody.